Okay, so get this. We're going to be diving into this Swedish legal case
Oh, wow.
about a 3-year-old girl
Mm-hmm.
who was actually born in Sweden, but get this, she was denied citizenship.
Wait.
But the craziest part is that her mother, who applied for citizenship at the same time,
Oh, wow.
was granted it.
Oh, so they split them up like that.
Yeah, and it's a real head scratcher.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to this case from the Swedish migration courts.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, case MIG 2024.sen.
Okay. I'm intrigued already.
Yeah, so,
What makes this case so fascinating?
yeah, what makes it so fascinating?
Besides the obvious,
Yeah.
is that it really, throws into question what we think we know about, belonging to a nation.
Right.
Is it just paperwork? Or is there something more?
It really makes you think, right?
Yeah.
You would think that being born in a country would be a pretty straightforward path to citizenship, but
Right.
Clearly it's not so simple,
Apparently not.
at least not in Sweden.
Not in Sweden, no.
So let's unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
So we have AA, the mother,
Okay.
who is applying for Swedish citizenship for both herself and her 3-year-old daughter.
Right.
And as we said, the daughter was born in Sweden.
Right.
So what happened?
So the migration court actually decided to grant the mother citizenship, but denied it to the daughter.
Wow.
And the reason that they gave was because the little girl hadn't established permanent residency yet.
Hold on. How can a 3-year-old,
Already.
even establish permanent residency?
Yeah.
And wouldn't just being born there count for something?
You would think so.
Right.
Yeah, that's where Swedish law gets a little bit, I guess, murky, you could say.
Okay.
This case really hinges on Section 13 of their act from 2001 on citizenship.
Okay.
And this section spells out how a child can gain citizenship through a parent.
Uh-huh.
But here's the catch.
Okay.
It doesn't actually require the child to have permanent residency.
Oh, wow.
It's silent on that point.
So that's where the gray area is.
Exactly.
But if the law doesn't specifically say it's required,
Right.
how can they deny citizenship based on that?
Well, one of the judges, Judge Goldfelt, actually wrote a dissenting opinion on this case,
Interesting.
saying that while permanent residency isn't explicitly required for the child to gain citizenship through a parent,
Okay.
the fact that she didn't have it should be taken into consideration.
So it's almost like we're weighing
Yeah.
a strict interpretation of the law against this idea of keeping a family legally united.
Yeah,
So which should carry more weight?
that is the question.
It's a fascinating,
Yeah,
I guess, legal and moral dilemma.
exactly.
And to understand
Yeah.
how we even got here, I think it's helpful to know that this isn't a brand new argument.
Right.
This case actually references other instances where this same section of the law has been interpreted in different ways going back several years.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So this whole idea of what factors determine citizenship has been evolving in Sweden.
Exactly.
So what was considered a key factor decades ago
Right.
might not hold the same weight today.
Exactly. And this case is sort of the latest chapter in a much longer story.
Wow. This case really makes you wonder,
Mm-hmm.
what does it really mean to belong to a country?
Yeah.
Is it all about having the paperwork,
Right.
having that passport,
Yeah.
or is it something more than that?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a question philosophers have been grappling with for centuries.
Right.
Is belonging about shared values, cultural practices, just feeling a genuine connection to the place and its people. And this case really forces us to confront those very questions.
And what about this little girl?
Right.
Imagine being 3 years old
Yeah.
and being told that you don't belong to the same country as your family,
Exactly.
the place you were born.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, from a psychological perspective, that's where things get really interesting. Because, having a sense of belonging is so crucial for development.
Right.
Especially at that age.
Yeah.
To feel excluded from the nation that your family is a part of, even though you were born there, could have a lasting impact, I would say.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
The heavy stuff.
It is heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to even think about the impact this could have on her life.
Yeah.
It's not just these legal technicalities. It's about a child's right to belong.
Absolutely. And I think this case, it could potentially have these ripple effects and set a precedent for other families in similar situations.
Right.
How the court interprets the law in this case could really influence future citizenship applications and how they're reviewed.
So what does this all mean for Sweden?
Right.
Is this a sign that they're moving towards like a much stricter approach to citizenship?
Well, that's hard to say. For certain,
Okay.
remember that the court's decision wasn't unanimous.
Yeah.
Judge Gulfeld's dissenting opinion
Yeah.
really suggests that there's still debate going on within the Swedish legal system
Yeah.
about, like, how much weight should be given to permanent residency,
Right.
in cases like this.
It's interesting how this internal debate, right, almost mirrors this broader societal tension we see between maintaining clear legal boundaries and then upholding human values.
Exactly.
Like, family unity.
Family unity, exactly.
It's almost like they're trying to find this balance point between the head and the heart.
I think you hit it right on the head there.
Yeah.
I mean, this tension isn't unique to Sweden.
Right.
Many nations around the world are kind of wrestling with these same questions as, the world's becoming more globalized.
Right.
Migration patterns change.
It really makes me wonder how do other countries handle these kinds of situations?
That's a great question.
Are there places where family unity kind of like trumps these strict residency requirements?
You've hit on a really important point.
Okay.
Comparing how different countries approach citizenship can be incredibly insightful.
Okay.
There's a whole spectrum of approaches out there.
Oh, okay.
Some countries take a much more inclusive approach. So they grant automatic citizenship to any child born within their borders.
Wow.
Regardless of the parent's immigration status.
So like no matter what?
No matter what.
Okay.
And this is what's known as birthright citizenship.
So where you're born basically determines your citizenship.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that principle is rooted in the concept of what's called just soli.
Just soli.
Which literally means right of the soil.
Okay.
So it's all about the place of birth.
The place of birth, okay.
But then, on the flip side, you have countries that adhere to the principle of jus sanguinis.
Jus sanguinis.
Meaning right of blood.
Okay.
In these systems, citizenship is determined primarily by the nationality of the parents.
So if your parents are citizens, then you automatically become one too.
Exactly, regardless of where you're born.
No matter where you're born.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, of course, you have countries that kind of blend elements of both.
Okay.
Just soli and just sanguinis.
So they create this, like, hybrid system.
Exactly, a hybrid system.
So it sounds like there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
There really isn't.
To the citizenship question, the approach a country takes often reflects, like, its history.
Its history, its values.
Its values, the very fabric of its society.
Absolutely. And for example, nations that are built on immigration, like the United States, have historically leaned towards birthright citizenship.
Okay.
It's a way to integrate newcomers, create a shared sense of national identity.
It's like saying, hey, if you're born here,
exactly,
you're one of us.
One of us, yeah.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But other countries, especially those that have a strong sense of national heritage.
Right. A more homogenous culture might lean more towards just sanguinis.
Okay.
Placing a higher value on the lineage of their citizens.
So the way a country defines belonging is deeply embedded in its legal framework.
Absolutely.
And national identity.
Yeah, it's not just a bureaucratic detail.
It's not just, a stamp in your passport or whatever.
Right. It gets to the heart of who they are as a nation.
Wow.
Yeah.
This case in Sweden is like a microcosm of that global conversation. It forces us to confront those deeper questions about what it means to belong and who gets to decide who's in and who's out.
Exactly. And it has, huge implications for individuals and families. These different approaches can determine access to basic rights, opportunities, even a person's sense of self-worth and belonging.
Makes you realize that something as seemingly simple as citizenship is incredibly complex.
Very layered.
Layered.
Yeah.
It's not just a stamp in your passport.
No.
It's a reflection of a country's values.
It's much bigger than that.
And how it sees its place in the world.
Absolutely.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Good. I'm glad.
It's amazing how one legal case, can open up this Pandora's box.
That's true.
Of these philosophical and societal questions.
Yeah, I mean, it really highlights how much our world is changing. Globalization and increased migration are challenging our traditional notions of citizenship and belonging.
Right.
We're having to rethink the old models.
It makes you wonder, are those old models even adequate anymore?
That's a good question.
You know, in a world where people move more freely across borders, where families are spread across different countries, do we need to rethink how we define membership in a nation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And it's a question that more and more countries are having to grapple with. Some scholars are even proposing new models of citizenship that are more fluid, more inclusive, taking into account things like transnational ties, global interconnectedness.
So it's not just where you're born or who your parents are, but also like your contributions to society.
Exactly.
Your sense of belonging, your commitment to the community. Like those things should count for something.
Those things should count,
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that belonging can be multifaceted and go beyond legal status.
It sounds like we're moving toward a more nuanced,
I think so,
understanding of citizenship.
It's one that, acknowledges the complexities of our modern world, our interconnected world.
This case in Sweden is just one example of how those complexities are playing out.
Right. It's a specific legal case.
Yeah.
But it raises these universal questions.
Absolutely.
That we all need to consider.
I agree.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to see how, a single case like this can make us rethink such fundamental concepts. We've talked about the legal aspects, the human impact, the global comparisons. But I'm curious, what stood out to you the most about this particular case?
For me, it's the dissenting opinion of Judge Gullfelt.
Okay.
The fact that there was this disagreement within the court. Not everyone agreed on how to interpret this section of the law. It just really, underscores how complex these issues of citizenship and belonging are. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even within one legal system,
can have these, very different perspectives. And those perspectives, shape people's lives.
Yeah. And in this case, that dissenting opinion really highlights the tension between, adhering to the strict letter of the law and considering the broader human impact of a decision.
Like where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
When is it okay to deviate from a strict interpretation of the law in favor of a more compassionate outcome?
Right.
That's the question.
That's the question. And there's no easy answer. But cases like this really force us to have those conversations, to grapple with those difficult questions. And to hopefully, find ways to create legal systems that are both just and humane.
Well said. So if you could offer one piece of advice to our listener, based on, everything that we've learned from this deep dive, what would it be?
I would say don't take citizenship for granted. It's something that, many of us have by birth or by naturalization. But it's a privilege that comes with responsibilities. It's about participating in your community, understanding your country's history and laws, advocating for those who might be excluded from the full benefits of citizenship.
That's such powerful advice. It's a reminder that citizenship isn't just about, what we receive. It's about what we contribute.
Exactly.
It's about being an active member of society, working towards a more inclusive, equitable world for everyone.
I agree.
So to our listener, we hope you enjoyed this exploration of Swedish citizenship law and the broader questions that it raises about what it means to belong. And as always, keep questioning, keep learning, and